I mean, the first one I saw was Seven Samurai, and after that I was completely hooked. I said, this is really good. At that point is when I was actually exposed to Kurosawa.
George Lucas didn't just create Star Wars, he stole it.
Everything's under control, situation normal.
Not literally, but every lightsaber duel, every cantina scene, every moment of that galaxy far, far away was built on the bones of 7 films that obsessed him, haunted him, and ultimately transformed him into the most powerful filmmaker in Hollywood.
Ladies and gentlemen, the 33rd recipient of the AFI Life Achievement Award, George Lucas.
Tonight, we're pulling back the curtain on the secret influences that shaped the Star Wars saga. These aren't just movies Lucas admired from a distance. These are the films he studied frame by frame, dissected shot by shot, and cannibalized piece by piece to build his empire. From samurai epics that taught him about honor to silent masterpieces that showed him the power of visual storytelling, these 7 films didn't just inspire George Lucas. They became his DNA. You think you know how Star Wars was born? You're about to discover the truth is far more fascinating than fiction. Number 7, A Hard Day's Night, 1964. Richard Lester's Beatles romp might seem like an odd choice for the man who created Darth Vader, but George Lucas saw something in this kinetic musical that would revolutionize how he approached filmmaking. I loved the energy, the fast cutting, the way it moved, Lucas said in interviews. It was like nothing I'd ever seen before. A Hard Day's Night wasn't just a movie about the Beatles. It was a masterclass in kinetic editing, handheld camera work, and capturing raw energy on film. Lester's rapid-fire cutting style and documentary-like approach to fictional storytelling blew Lucas's mind when he saw it as a film student at USC. But here's what most people miss. Lucas didn't just admire the film's energy, he studied its structure. The way Lester moved between intimate character moments and explosive musical sequences became the template for how Lucas would balance quiet character development with spectacular action in Star Wars. Watch the cantina scene in A New Hope, and you're seeing Richard Lester's influence. The quick cuts between different alien species, the way the camera moves through the crowd, the sense of barely controlled chaos. That's pure Hard Day's Night DNA. Lucas also borrowed Lester's approach to humor. The Beatles' irreverent, self-aware comedy style influenced the banter between Han Solo and Princess Leia, the comic relief provided by C-3PO and R2-D2, and even Yoda's playful introduction in The Empire Strikes Back. Lester showed me that you could be serious about your craft while still having fun with your audience, Lucas reflected years later. That balance between spectacle and intimacy, between epic scope and human moments, that all came from studying A Hard Day's Night. Number 6, Dr. Strangelove, 1964. Stanley Kubrick's nuclear nightmare might seem like an unlikely influence on space opera, but George Lucas found something profound in this dark political satire that would shape his approach to depicting galactic conflict. Kubrick showed me how to make the political personal, Lucas explained in a rare, candid interview. Dr. Strangelove isn't really about nuclear war. It's about how power corrupts, how institutions fail.
What did you say? I said Premier Kissoff is a degenerate atheist.
Mr. President, I formally request that this ignorant brute...
I'm sorry,
Mr. President, I think they're trying the number.
How good people can be manipulated into doing terrible things. Sound familiar? The entire prequel trilogy is essentially Lucas's attempt to recreate Dr. Strangelove's central theme: how a democracy can be manipulated into becoming a dictatorship through fear, propaganda, and the machinations of a single evil genius. Palpatine's rise to power mirrors the bureaucratic insanity that Kubrick depicted in The War Room. Both films show how reasonable people can be led step by step into supporting monstrous actions through carefully crafted lies and manufactured crises. But Lucas also borrowed Kubrick's visual language, the sterile, imposing architecture of the Death Star, the cold efficiency of Imperial officers, the way Lucas frames political scenes with characters dwarfed by massive spaces. That's pure Kubrick influence. Stanley taught me that science fiction could be a mirror for contemporary politics, Lucas said. You could tell stories about Vietnam, about Watergate, about the military-industrial complex, but set them in space and suddenly people would listen. The famous scene where Vader chokes Admiral Ozzel via hologram, that's Lucas channeling Kubrick's ability to make technology feel both miraculous and terrifying. Number 5. Citizen Kane, 1941. Orson Welles' masterpiece taught George Lucas everything he needed to know about visual storytelling, mythic structure, and the corrupting nature of power. Kane showed me that movies could be literature, Lucas said during his AFI Lifetime Achievement Award speech. Welles proved that popular entertainment could also be high art. But Lucas didn't just admire Citizen Kane from an artistic standpoint, he studied its structure obsessively. The way Welles used flashbacks to reveal character, the non-linear narrative that slowly unveiled the truth about Charles Foster Kane, the way the film built to a devastating emotional climax. That structure became the template for the entire Star Wars saga. Think about it. We meet Darth Vader as the ultimate villain, then slowly learn his tragic backstory through flashbacks and revelations. The prequels are essentially Lucas's attempt to recreate the Rosebud revelation on a galactic scale. Welles' use of deep focus photography also influenced Lucas's approach to composition. Those famous shots where characters in the foreground and background are equally sharp? Lucas borrowed that technique for key scenes throughout the original trilogy. Welles showed me that every shot should tell a story, Lucas explained. The way you frame a character, the way you use light and shadow, the way you move the camera, it's all part of the narrative. The throne room scenes in Return of the Jedi, with the Emperor manipulating Luke while Vader watches in the background, are pure Citizen Kane. Multiple layers of meaning, visual metaphors, and emotional subtext, all contained in a single frame. Number 4. The Searchers, 1956. John Ford's Western masterpiece gave George Lucas the visual language that would define Star Wars. But more than that, it taught him how to create mythic characters who embody both heroism and darkness. Ford was the master of visual storytelling, Lucas said. He could tell you everything you needed to know about a character just by how he framed them against the landscape. The famous shot of Luke Skywalker staring at the twin suns of Tatooine, that's a direct homage to Ford's iconic compositions in The Searchers. The way Ford used Monument Valley's towering rock formations to dwarf his characters, making them seem both heroic and vulnerable, became Lucas's template for creating epic scope. But Lucas also borrowed Ford's approach to character complexity. John Wayne's Ethan Edwards in The Searchers is a deeply flawed hero, driven by racism and revenge, whose quest for justice becomes an obsession that threatens to destroy him. Sound familiar? Anakin Skywalker's journey from hero to villain follows the exact same arc. Both characters start as protectors who become consumed by their need for control, their fear of loss, their inability to accept that some things are beyond their power to change. Ford showed me that the most interesting heroes are the ones who could become villains, Lucas reflected. The line between good and evil isn't as clear as we'd like to think. The burning homestead scene in A New Hope, where Luke discovers his aunt and uncle's bodies, is a direct visual quote from The Searchers. Lucas even used the same framing, the same emotional beats, the same sense of a young man's innocence being shattered by violence. Number 3. Metropolis, 1927. Fritz Lang's silent science fiction epic didn't just influence Star Wars, it created the visual vocabulary that Lucas would use to build his entire universe. Metropolis showed me what science fiction could be, Lucas said. Not just rockets and ray guns, but a complete world with its own architecture, its own social structure, its own mythology. The influence is everywhere. C-3PO's design is a direct homage to the robot Maria from Metropolis. The massive industrial spaces of the Death Star, the towering spires of Coruscant, the way Lucas uses architecture to reflect political power. That's all Fritz Lang. But Lucas borrowed more than just visual elements. He took Lang's central theme, the conflict between technology and humanity, between progress and tradition, between the machine and the soul. The Empire represents Lang's vision of industrial dehumanization taken to its logical extreme. Stormtroopers are literally faceless. Imperial officers are interchangeable bureaucrats, And the Death Star itself is the ultimate expression of technological power divorced from human values. Lang understood that technology without wisdom is dangerous, Lucas explained. That's the real message of Star Wars. The Force represents the spiritual, the human, the things that can't be quantified or controlled. The famous scene where Luke destroys the Death Star by trusting the Force instead of his targeting computer? That's pure Metropolis.
You're all clear, kid. Now let's blow this thing and go home.
The triumph of human intuition over mechanical precision, of faith over technology. Lang's influence extends beyond the original trilogy. The clone army in Attack of the Clones, with its endless rows of identical soldiers, is a direct visual quote from Metropolis's worker sequences. Number 2, Seven Samurai, 1954. Akira Kurosawa's epic didn't just influence Star Wars, it provided the emotional and structural foundation for everything George Lucas would create. Kurosawa was my film school, Lucas said. He taught me about honor, about sacrifice, about what it means to be a hero. The influence goes far beyond the obvious Jedi-samurai connection. Lucas borrowed Kurosawa's approach to ensemble storytelling, his use of weather and landscape to reflect emotional states, his ability to balance intimate character moments with spectacular action sequences. But most importantly, he borrowed Kurosawa's moral universe. In Seven Samurai, honor matters more than life. Protecting the innocent is worth any sacrifice. And true strength comes from discipline and self-control. That's the Jedi Code in a nutshell. The famous scene where Obi-Wan sacrifices himself to save Luke and his friends. That's straight out of Seven Samurai, where the warriors knowingly face impossible odds to protect people they barely know. Lucas also borrowed Kurosawa's visual techniques. The way Kurosawa used telephoto lenses to compress space and create intimacy during action scenes became Lucas's signature style. Those famous lightsaber duels with their tight framing and emotional intensity are pure Kurosawa. Akira showed me that action scenes should be about character, not just spectacle, Lucas reflected. Every sword fight in Seven Samurai reveals something about who these people are, what they believe, what they're willing to die for. Number 1, The Hidden Fortress, 1958. And here it is, the film that gave birth to Star Wars. Akira Kurosawa's adventure epic provided not just inspiration, but the actual DNA of Lucas's space opera. The Hidden Fortress was the key, Lucas admitted. It showed me how to tell an epic story from the perspective of the lowest characters. The influence is undeniable. 2 bumbling peasants stumble into an adventure involving a princess, a general, and a fortune in gold. Sound familiar? See, 3PO and R2-D2 are direct descendants of Kurosawa's comic relief characters, and their perspective as the lowest characters in the story became Lucas's narrative strategy. But Lucas borrowed much more than just character archetypes. He took Kurosawa's entire approach to adventure storytelling. The way The Hidden Fortress balances comedy and drama, the episodic structure that allows for multiple action sequences, the focus on a small group of characters caught up in larger political events. Even specific scenes were transplanted wholesale. The sequence where the peasants argue about which direction to go in the desert became the scene where C-3PO and R2-D2 split up on Tatooine. The Hidden Fortress itself, with its secret passages and dramatic reveals, became the template for the Death Star. Kurosawa understood that the best adventures are really about friendship, Lucas said, about ordinary people who discover they're capable of extraordinary things when they're fighting for something bigger than themselves. The wipe transitions that became Lucas's signature? Stolen directly from The Hidden Fortress. The way Kurosawa moved between scenes, the pacing of his action sequences, even his use of natural locations to create epic scope. But perhaps most importantly, The Hidden Fortress taught Lucas that popular entertainment could also be profound. Kurosawa never talked down to his audience, never sacrificed character for spectacle, never forgot that the best adventures are ultimately about human values. George Lucas didn't create Star Wars in a vacuum. He built it from the bones of cinema history, taking the best elements from 7 masterpieces and forging them into something new. These films taught him about visual storytelling, mythic structure, moral complexity, and the power of popular entertainment to explore profound themes. They showed him that movies could be both spectacular and intimate, both entertaining and meaningful. But Lucas did something that none of his influences achieved. He created a mythology that has endured for nearly 50 years, inspiring new generations of filmmakers to steal from the masters, just as he did. Because that's how art works. You take what came before, you add your own vision, and you create something that will inspire the next generation to steal from you. The circle is now complete. We are committed to releasing 2 videos a week. Like, share, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more film lore.